All right, so after the success of The Last of Us, we knew it was only a matter of time until studios started pumping out more video game adaptations. So there are some things to like in this one, but there are also some things that are a complete mess in this movie. So let's talk about Until Dawn. What is up, everyone? Welcome to the channel. First of all, let me know down in the comments down below what you thought about Until Dawn. So I remember when Until Dawn, the video game, came out in 2015. That was like my pre-kid era of life when I was gaming on Twitch like 8 hours a day. But I heard about this game, this new horror game, this new like choose your own adventure, this new like butterfly kind of effect system that I'd never really heard of up until that point, where your decisions really affect the life of each character, the ending of the story. But yeah, everybody just seemed to really like this game. All the playable characters could potentially die just depending on the choices that you would make. And on top of that, some of the voice actors in the game also were really damn good. I mean, we have Rami Malek and Hayden Panettiere doing some of the stuff in the game as well. So it's like, I get it. I got the popularity right there. But with that said, I never actually got around to playing the game. I don't think at that time in 2015 I had a PlayStation 4, and also just life got in the way. I have, though, played The Quarry, which is made by the same company that made Until Dawn. Very similar game, kind of choose your own adventure, that butterfly effect kind of system, which is a game that I have enjoyed. I've had some good times with it as well, but maybe I'll live stream Until Dawn soon, because after watching the movie, I can see why this concept could work as a game. Now, with that said, though, what's different, I mentioned The Last of Us a second ago, but what's different about, Until Dawn compared to The Last of Us is The Last of Us is a story. It's not really an interchangeable story that's like a choose your own adventure, butterfly effect system. So Until Dawn is probably a pretty hard game to adapt to a movie, because the movie is set in stone. We're not sitting there as an audience member choosing what's going to happen on screen, right? And there's all these different variations and stuff. So I get the complaint that I've heard some people say that the movie is way different than the game. They took some of the great stuff from the game and removed it. But at the same time, I also respect the fact that they're trying something new. I mean, that's cool as well, but the foundation of the great things of the game you should always do. But my point is, this review and what I'm going to say about the movie is from a perspective of a guy who knows a little bit about the game, but like I said, I haven't played the game. All right, though, enough about the game. Let's jump in and just talk about the movie. And let's start off by jumping into the good. And first of all, I really like the world and just this entire environment that the movie takes place in. Yeah, it's not really massive. I wish it was a little bit bigger and they would have explored a little bit more of what we see on the screen in just as far as the environment and this town and everything like that. But you've got this town. It's basically a ruin because of something terrible that happened in the town's past. So it's got this very kind of apocalyptic look to it, which I really like. I'm a sucker for that. Really, really like that a lot. But like I said, I wish they would have kind of explored that a little bit more. Like we see a Ferris wheel like off in the distance, like there was maybe a town fair or something like that, which would have been cool to kind of see some of the set design and see some of the action and the gore go down in those scenes as well. But we've also got these mining tunnels throughout this movie as well, which kind of adds like a fun little claustrophobia to some of the chase scenes and some of the other horror scenes and things like that. But like I said, I did find myself wanting to know more about what happened, the mining accident, just the history behind the town. I wish they would have explored that a little bit more. I don't know, maybe they're leaving that open for a sequel. I don't know. I would probably be pretty surprised if they did end up having a sequel to this movie. I don't expect this movie to do really well, but who knows? I mean, crazier things have happened. I also think in this movie, the creature design is pretty fun. I think it's actually kind of unique. It's like the monsters we've seen in a lot of different iterations of stuff like this, but almost kind of mixed. It's got a unique look to it. Like it's not necessarily a zombie. It's not necessarily a vampire. It's got, yeah, like kind of like the best way I could say it is really just a unique look to the monsters in this. Like, they're nasty, and there is some CGI and definitely also some practical effects, which is the look of the monsters. But I also think with the CGI, they do a good job of hiding it in the shadows. It's very unnoticeable for me, at least just in the movie theater that I was in, and just the projection and all of that. I don't know, maybe if you saw this on a different format, maybe it would be a little bit different on a different TV, whatever have you, how it shows the darks a little bit different. But I thought it looked pretty good overall. I also think with this movie, yeah, I mean, there's going to be jump scares, right? And I actually thought that some of the jump scares, yes, a little corny, a little predictable at times, but I did think that some of the jump scares were pretty fun. Like, I look at this as kind of one of those, like a trip you could take with some of your friends to go see a movie, and there's going to be some moments as a group of friends where you can kind of laugh at each other, like, it gotcha, I saw it, gotcha. And just have a good time in regards to the jump scares, which I thought were pretty effective and pretty fun as well. I also thought it was pretty interesting how this movie, in a weird way, makes it feel like you're almost in a game or you're watching a video game. Obviously, it's a video game adaptation, but the way the movie plays out, it very much makes me think about a game like Dark Souls or Elden Ring, just the games that come to mind right away that maybe have some really damn hard boss fights that you have to just replay over and over and over. But in a movie setting, you see these characters trying to come up with new strategies. Almost at certain points, they just give up on the life altogether. You know, you're getting your ass kicked over and over and over. You're going to try new strategies, you know, new timing, new little things that you want to try out just to see if it'll potentially work. And then you try it and it's kind of like, shit, well, that didn't work. All right, let's restart at the last checkpoint. There's something about this movie that very much feels like a hard boss fight in a video game, which did kind of work for me. I also thought just the concept of the movie, the story, the idea of what's happening here. Obviously, the movie's called Until Dawn. So you got to survive basically until dawn. Just the whole idea of that, I also thought just overall is pretty fun. All right, now I think it is a good time to talk about the gore, which definitely fits into the good category for me in this movie. And I will say, thank goodness they decided to make this movie rated R. I have no idea if they were thinking about making it PG-13 or anything like that. I haven't heard anything about that, but if this movie was PG-13, I feel like this movie, it's already messy, would have been pretty unwatchable. I mean, you can also tell from my perspective, I felt like they put a lot of effort into the gore, which I respect. You know, there's some practical stuff here, there's some CGI as well. And I think, you know, just overall, I mean, the gore, it kind of becomes like this funny splatter fest throughout certain points in the movie, which did work for me. I mean, I laughed at certain moments. There's certain moments where it's pretty surprising. Not all, just overall, I wouldn't say the gore and some of the shocking moments. You could clearly see they wanted to kind of scare you and surprise you. A lot of the stuff was pretty predictable, but there was some small moments with the gore that kind of stood out to me and surprised me a little bit. Like there's this scene where basically this group uses this sledgehammer to just bash this thing's head in. And it's just like this juicy, nasty, like piñata, like something you would see in Terrifier. And that scene stood out in particular to me and I thought was really effective. And I was like, oh, damn, all right. They went there. But if you like your gore like I do, I mean, I feel like this movie is basically just an entire showcase of gore, because at certain points in the movie, it is just scene after scene over and over of just people getting slaughtered in crazy ways. I mean, at one point in the movie, some of the characters are just exploding in your face because of a choice that they made along the way that in the journey seemed pretty harmless. And yeah, it is pretty predictable from my perspective. Wasn't all that shocking, but still made me laugh. And I had a good time with it. And like I said earlier, I feel like they did put some effort into the gore, which is something I did respect. So enough with the good. All right, let's get into the bad of Until Dawn. So I mean, the characters in this movie, honestly, are truly mediocre in pretty much every sense of the word. I mean, if you're expecting to care about the fate or really just care about any of the characters, you're going to be pretty much let down. This movie is just kind of, like I mentioned earlier, just scene after scene after scene of just these crazy moments. There's really no character building. I mean, they try to, but the effort is very little there. I mean, And there's nothing really unique or interesting at all about the characters' backstories or just the characters just in general. They're very generic in so many different ways. It's just characters just kind of going through this story, doing something kind of mundane or inconsequential that eventually just leads to some sort of a gory, shocking moment. And I did mention that being kind of a good earlier, but like I said, just as far as the characters go, yeah, truly mediocre in this movie. I feel like also these are some of the least resourceful characters I could possibly imagine in a movie. I'm thinking to myself watching this movie, like, do any of you have any talent at all? Anything you're good at? Are you fast? Are you strong? Do you even know how to tie your shoes? Now, I get that these characters are young, but still, you gotta have something that you bring to the table. They try to lead us to believe that these characters have different personalities or different ways that they go about life or whatever, but they just don't on how it comes across on screen. I mean, I feel like basically 90% of the movie, the characters are just taking no initiative at all, really. They don't even have a game plan or anything like that. Or like I said, really anything that each of them brings to the table along this journey. But I guess with that said, I mean, their stupidity does give us some more Carnage candy to chew on throughout this movie, which is fun, right? But there's also this element to the characters too, where the characters, at least most of them from what I understood, know this really important piece of the puzzle on how they can survive this entire journey. There is one angle that they find out about that, yet they constantly make decisions to go against that, which is a very obvious decision not to do. Things like constantly splitting up for virtually no reason at all. Also, along this journey, the characters have to make some pretty terrible decisions along the way, and the movie doesn't really make it seem realistic at all that they're really struggling with this type of a decision, which is clearly like a terrible, really hard thing that 99.9% of the population in this world would probably really struggle with doing, but they just kind of do it. It seems like with no remorse, no really care in the world. And I get the characters are young, but still. Also, this movie is packed full of cliches. Stuff like, I've had enough with death, so let me give you this big speech about how we gotta stick together. We aren't technically family. I get that, but you know what, guys? I see you all as family, so we're gonna do this. And then, other characters kind of like, you're not gonna do this alone. We die together. And this movie's also just tropey as hell, I feel like. And it just has so many recycled horror cliches and tropes over and over and over. And with that said, one of the worst parts about this movie, in my opinion, and one of the most anticlimactic parts of this movie throughout the entire journey, I feel like really without question, is the eventual resolution or just kind of the ending to all of this madness. I feel like it's a plot line that should have just been just this really small puzzle piece along this entire journey. How they're going to get out of this whole thing. Yet it's basically the entire punchline of this entire movie. I felt like that ending, that little part there is nothing at all creative or interesting about it to me. And I'm sure when they were writing this or just thinking about this and executing this on screen, I guess the writer and director of this movie were kind of thinking, all right, guys, this is going to be one of those like, oh, I gotcha type moments, right? But it isn't at all. All right, so that pretty much wraps up the bad that I want to talk about with this movie. So with that said, it's weird because I actually did have some fun with this movie. And like I said, it's weird because the characters are about as blah as I could possibly imagine. Also, the ending, like I already said, but the ending, it's like a well done pork chop. It is so dry and so unsatisfying. Yet at the same time, how much this movie feels like a choose your own adventure video game and just the crazy gore. I kind of felt like I wasn't completely bored watching this movie. This movie actually kind of flew by for me, despite, like I said, the fact that a lot of things in this movie are not well done and are also a complete mess at times. Like I said, I enjoyed this world that they're in, this environment that they're navigating throughout this story. I thought was pretty cool, just the way it looked and just the set of all of it. And what's weird about it is when I watch movies, that makes up for a lot of things sometimes. Just to go back and talk about a movie for a second like Alien Romulus, a movie that has so many flaws, but just that whole mining colony, the ships, the potential new world they're gonna go and navigate, everything we're seeing on screen, the look of it, the grittiness of it all, that really helped to make up for so many flaws that movie had. Now, this movie by no means is a good movie, Until Dawn I'm talking about, but a lot of those flaws I felt like were kind of made up for with this environment and the look of everything and the creature design. And also, yeah, just the hilarity of this splatter fest that we're seeing on screens. And though this by no means is this a must-watch movie. I mean, this is a movie that you are totally okay waiting for streaming for, but you know, if you're bored and you want to go see a movie and have some laughs with some friends that I feel like flies by a little bit despite the terrible characters and some of the other things that I mentioned, I feel like it's a pretty fun movie to go and see despite the huge mess that a lot of things are in this movie. But yeah, with that said, let's go ahead and give Until Dawn some scores for some of the things that it did in this movie. You know what? I'm going to give this movie an A- for the gore. I'll give it a B for creature design. I thought the creature design, like I said, was pretty good. I got to give this movie, though, an F for the characters. I'll give it a C for the entertainment overall in this movie, because like I said, some of the scenes did fly by. You know, I was enjoying finding myself in this like splatter fest of just pure madness. And overall, I would give Until Dawn a C-. Yes, like I said, this movie is kind of a mess, but just the silly gore and all of that and how this really does in a weird way make you feel like you're in a video game. I enjoyed that aspect of it, but like I said, by no means is this a good movie. But anyways, everybody, thanks so much for watching my review of Until Dawn. If you want some more videos from me right now, go ahead and check out one of these videos next to me. You don't want to miss future videos on the channel. The best way to do that is to make sure you subscribe. All of my social media links will be down below in the description if you want to follow me over there. But again, everybody, thanks so much for watching. My name is Matt, and I will talk to you in the next one.